People used to say that the Boxster was a poor man's Porsche, a pale imitation of the iconic 911. But the latest model has really come of age. In fact, it might now be the best sports car in the Porsche range. In this episode of Car and Driver Abroad, we find out how the Boxster S stacks up against the new 911 Carrera on the drag strip and right at the limit on the racetrack. A drag strip, a new Boxster S and a new 911 Carrera. You can probably guess what's about to happen, but I bet you'd struggle to predict the outcome. These two are now just too close to call. So today we'll forget the controversy surrounding electric power steering and instead answer one burning question. Is the Boxster S now faster than the 911 Carrera? We're at a little slice of Americana in the middle of England. This is Santipod Raceway, a beautiful quarter-mile strip. We've got gorgeous conditions, the surface is sticky, and today the ultimate grudge match is going to play out. We're in the little boy of the Porsche range, the Boxster S, and over there its big brother, the 911 Carrera. But these latest Boxster and 911 are so closely matched, you've got to wonder why you'd bother with the 911 at all. Well, today we're going to find out. We reckon this little car might just beat the 911 and save you an awful lot of money. The new 991 generation 911 is bigger, more refined, a better GT car than ever before, but it still holds a slim on-paper performance advantage over the Boxster S. Its 3.4 litre flat 6 has 350 horsepower to the Boxster's 315, and even though it's slightly heavier, its power to weight ratio is a shade ahead. But if the 991 has grown into middle age, the Boxster S seems to have emerged from its shadow and is now at the peak of its powers. It uses a similar 3.4 litre engine with 315 horsepower. It's lighter, and of course its mid-engine layout should provide the ultimate agility and a more forgiving balance. It also looks so much more resolved these days, a model with its own identity, with confident design details, a tactile, elegant interior. It feels a million miles away from a cut-price entry-level model. So let's see if it's ready to finally kick sand in the 911's face. Place your bets. But before we let that drag race play out, let's head across England and into Wales to an unforgiving, relentless little racetrack called Landau. You see, drag strips are fun, but if you want to really have a good time, you need a few corners too. This is where these two cars should come alive. Of course, there's a lot more to a Porsche than simply how quick it is in a straight line. So we've come to a circuit to test these cars' chassis as well. We're at Landau in South Wales. Not the most glamorous or biggest track in the world, but a fantastic test of any chassis. Got some really tight, nadgety stuff, and then some really fast direction changes too. Should give us a really good picture of how the 911 stacks up against its little brother, the new Boxster S, which is a fantastic little car. Now, comparing a Boxster S and a 911 Carrera isn't as simple as you would first think. There's so many chassis options on these cars now. So let's clear all the spec differences up now. This is a Boxster S, it's got PASM, and it's also got the torque vectoring diff in the rear. So this car should be perfectly suited to track work. We've given it an unfair advantage in many ways, but it's still a hell of a lot cheaper than the 911. The Carrera, on the other hand, is totally standard. No PASM, no PDCC. It's on standard passive dampers, just as it would be if you didn't tick any of the chassis options. So we've probably got the fastest Boxster S on track and the slowest 911. The question is, can this trick diff in the back overcome the traction advantage that the 911 naturally has with its rear engine? So immediately the Boxster S feels really, really light, and it changes direction so well. It really is a big leap on from the last one in that respect. The engine is pretty much the same as the 911 engine, a 3.4. It's in a lower state of tune, 315 horsepower. But this is a lighter car, so I think in terms of raw performance they're going to be quite similar. The balance of this car is so good. I think it's going to do really well through these slow corners where its mid-engine agility helps. I have to say, before we start, I think this is probably the favourite. So let's see how this Boxster S does across the lap. We've got the PASM suspension in sport, all the drive raids off, so we get to really feel what the car's doing at the limit. It's a very busy lap this, so I might not be making much sense. Great stability on the brakes, just rattled through this slow section. Beautifully changing direction, rides the curbs well as well. Bit of oversteer with that diff, but that can be a help on some of these corners. It's just got such stability. Quite tricky to get the balance between just enough oversteer to kill the understeer and too much so you're scrubbing off speed. But it's just so intuitive to drive. So that's a lap in the Boxster S, and it's set a really, really good benchmark. The 3.4 litre flat six, which is essentially the same as the 991 engine, just in a lower state of tune, is just so creamy. And the throttle response is so accurate, it's lovely. I love this old 6-speed gearbox as well. Really easy to use, never hold you up. It will go through the gears as quick as your hand can move. Surprises, well, maybe that it's quite hard just to balance between too much understeer and too much oversteer. There's a sweet spot right in the middle where you just get a tiny bit of angle, which allows you to accelerate, use this diff, and not have that horrible waiting for the front tyres to bite. So it's tricky to get it just right, but it's not tricky to drive. It's great fun, and even if you get it wrong and you need to throw loads of lock at it, you'll still be having a fantastic time. So if the 991 can beat the Boxster S around a circuit like this, narrow, tight, busy, then you've got to say it's going to be a very good 911. Let's see if it's a GT car now, or whether it's still got its sports car roots somewhere in there. Now, I'm a big 911 fan, so part of me really wants this car to be quicker. It's got more power, 3.4 litre engine still, but 350 horsepower, so quite a lot more power, similar torque, and this is heavier, and it feels it immediately. There's more weight to the steering. It feels like a bigger car, and on a circuit as little as this, as narrow and as tight, that's going to be a big handicap. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out, actually. So my heart says 911, my head at the moment says Boxster. Let's see how it copes. Well, I'll tell you what, it turns in. Forget 911's understeering. It really turns in. Good stability on the brakes. Yeah, it just turns over these, even through this tight section. Maybe a bit more understeer through there. You can certainly feel the weight out the back. But the traction's superb. Through there, you can get on the power. This is going to be close. Yeah, it's really good through that last corner where the Boxster's understeering a bit. This is just turning in and going. So on the track, a track absolutely suited to the Boxster S on paper. The 911 is more precise, more fun, and faster. This is a basic Carrera, but I would track days in this thing all year. It is bloody brilliant when you're absolutely on it. It's got all the 911 qualities, but it just turns in like a mid-engine car. Yeah, strike this one up for the 911, I think. I have to admit, I was shocked at the 911's superiority on the racetrack. It pulled an immediate lead even in the very tight first sector, turning in harder and remaining stable through rapid direction changes where its rear engine should really cause problems. The faster Sector 2 was a similar story. Less understeer, more progressive oversteer and far superior traction, meaning a higher peak speed too. Already it's nearly a full second ahead. The final sector is all about traction and power, and the 911 pulls further ahead. In the end it's 1.1 seconds quicker on a very short lap. That is a big difference and a seriously impressive result for the 911. So back to the drag strip. Can the Boxster S regain some pride and give the 911 a real run for its money? So despite the rear engine, the Boxster nearly launches as well as the 911, and then it just starts to go away in the end. So that initial 911 traction, and it's small but significant power to weight ratio advantage, just impossible to overhaul for the Boxster S. It's very, very close, but Porsche have done just enough to keep the 911 ahead. We had Santa Pod Raceway to ourselves for a full day and ran these two cars side by side a number of times. As track conditions improved and technique too, the times tumbled, but the result was nearly always the same. The 911 just pipped the Boxster. It was a cold day, so we couldn't launch the cars hard. Little more than 3,000 RPM was enough, despite the guys prepping the track with that magical drag adhesive that can pull the shoes from your feet. It all came down to one final run. Thanks to that rear engine and massive rear tyres, the 911 had been easy to get off the line even when the track was green. But as the drag strip improved, the Boxster started to get much, much closer. One proper burnout, a few more revs for the launch, and maybe it could finally overhaul the Carrera. But the 911 couldn't be beaten and finished just 2/100ths of a second ahead. Car and Driver's official figures are even quicker and put the two even closer than our results showed. Both hit 30 miles an hour in 1.6 seconds and 60 in 4.4. The Boxster S actually sneaks ahead at 100 by a single tenth, but at the quarter mile they're inseparable, both crossing the line in 12.9 seconds at 111 miles an hour. It seems Porsche isn't protecting the 911 anymore. So the 991 upholds the 911's honour. It was just a tiny bit quicker on the drag strip, but surprisingly it did a real number on the Boxster S on the racetrack. But if we factor value for money back into the equation, it tells a different story, doesn't it? I think if there's a moral victor here, it has to be the Boxster S. The king isn't quite dead, but the prince is getting very, very close.